Do you remember your very first ever table bump?
I do. I do, and it was actually probably one of the roughest, if not the roughest table bump I ever took. I wrestled Taz on an ECW house show early in my ECW career, and you know the bar top tables to have the single leg and then it kinda goes out like that? Taz repeatedly would suplex me onto that on the it was on the outside of there, and I was taking it pretty well for having no real experience, but he gave me like a belly to belly on that, and I think he even gave me not a German, but like a T-bone type one twice on it. He was trying to break it, but it was that square table with the center thing. You're not breaking it. It just kept tipping over. So it was the ultimate botchamania. I am the table twice. So I was in 1994, I believe, before I even like started the Raven stuff. I was putting guys over. So yeah, that was my first table bump.
So Taz was still the barefoot Tasmaniac then at that point.
No. He wasn't Tasmania. Was
Yeah,
he?
he would
Wait a
have been in
minute.
'94, definitely.
No, I mean he transitioned from
That would have been
yeah, use
'95, I think,
words.
when he when he started wearing boots and shaved his head and stuff. I think he was still Tasmaniac in '94. I'm pretty sure.
He might have been Tasmaniac. You might be right, but he still was the human suplex machine, and he was still Taz in the locker room. So I, it was good. I mean, it was good for what it was. I'm using a Meltzer thing, good for what it was, but it was just I got thrown around. You know what I mean? I got beat up. I got eaten alive. I was there to basically get squashed. Oh man, those table bumps. I remember them. Like these, I don't think these are going to break.
What is it?
And you didn't have to jump for Taz either, especially I weighed like 190 or 195.
Okay, right. So, I mean, leaving that one out, which obviously wasn't designed to go through at all. What is it like? I'll go back to ECW as well at one point, but what is it like going through like the uniform tables that we see for 20 plus years now in WWE?
It depends on the ring, by the way. In the old ECW ring, it hurt less to go through a table than the bump in the ring. So, and a lot of times that is the case. That if you go through a table, depending upon the move, it literally is just breaking a table. It's a flat bump, whether you're taking it, say, a superplex or suplex, body slam. Usually a table bump is usually something to the effect of like a choke slam bump, power bomb bump, or going off the second rope or something like that. And it just makes it easy. Now, we weren't smart enough to what we watched with the Bob Holly thing, and that would make anybody kind of pause. We weren't smart enough nor how should I say, aware enough to know that there could be potential injuries off of this. We were so lucky not to have things. You saw when we watched double dog collar match, Anthony just threw me. That could have went really, really wrong. So, but it just disintegrated the table and it turned out to be a different yet uniform table bump.
That is on the Stevie Richards Patreon as well. That Stevie watches all the way through, gives a ton of, because that was like the most requested match that featured you as well for a watch along as well, and hopefully that's got a lot of interest on the Patreon as well. And I know I mentioned that, and we got you got a huge amount of a huge bump in subscribers to watch that as well. You say a back bump, but you've taken front bumps through tables. I'm pretty sure you've taken a 3D, haven't you?
I have. I've taken a threat. Actually, as Dude Love, when we fought, Nick Foley and myself fought the Dudleys on Raw early on when I was doing my imitation type of gimmick, and I did take the 3D. The 3D is not that hard because Devon has you here, and then Bubba grabs your head. You're protected by his arm, and it's literally just your torso that's supposed to go through. Your head clears. Devon's got the legs, so your knees aren't going really through the table. It's just your torso, and then bringing you down together is what puts you through the table. So we should break down the 3D or even the 3D through a table on a future episode or Patreon.
Take a drink. Um, so generally, you're doing a back bump through a table. How do you actually bump? And I'm specifically asking, what do you do with your arms? I mean, do you sort of like keep them a bit close together so they don't hit the edges? Do you do that maybe so it's just your torso going through? What do you do with your arms when you bump?
I've never really thought through it. You would think you would do this or you would throw them back to where you don't. But I remember a lot of the table bumps, especially power bombs. The one that Bubba gave me when we talked about it on the Devon channel when Dudleys were supposed to join Right to Censor, but they tricked us and they did this, the Dudley super bomb through a table. My arms hit the edge or hit the meat of the table, but it didn't hurt. So there's different ways to do it. Sometimes if you throw your arms back, James, what do you think you're not going to do with your arms back?
Ooh.
Tuck your chin.
Yes.
Your head will follow your arms. So if anything, when you go up for that, you're holding on to Bubba's head for that particular type of power bomb. When you take a power bomb, you sit all the way up and you usually grab and then they bump you through the table. It's actually a very high impact move with a lot of force. Like, in other words, Bubba or anybody has to suplex me or he has to body slam me or he has to power bomb me and literally do it with all his might to put me through the table. So it's not my bump, it's him bumping me through the table that makes it break.
With the table, once again, just to reiterate, we're talking uniform tables here. Do they actually break your fall? Do you really feel it at all? Does it make a bump worse? Does it make a bump better on average going through a table?
It all depends. In the hard, bolt riddled ECW ring, the table was much easier to bump. Now, if you're in a ring that bounces a lot, the ring can still come up and bite you. The table can come up and bite you off the bounce. The legs could kind of also, if there's something before you even go through the table, if it's a bouncy ring and the person has to walk you over, who's to say you've seen Sabu a lot, that it's become a meme, that the table tips over, the table falls, the legs collapse. That could happen. And sometimes the guy's just stepping over to put you through it. That's enough to, and by the way, he doesn't see the table. So that's why usually in tag matches, the power bomb goes up. And I've seen people like even the Dudleys, Devon would hold the table because the ring was so bouncy. I need to keep the table where it's at. Only people with experience can know what could go wrong with that. That's why, like these young kids that do it, you're even luckier than we were in ECW because so much can go wrong.
That being said, when you're using the uniform WWE tables or around about that, how unpredictable can the landing be? Or are they generally predictable as far as you know what they're going to feel like and you know how they're going to splinter out and you're generally going to be safe?
Well, the Bob Holly spot proves it's all guesswork. You don't really know. You can just assume this is where it's going to go. I'm going to land in the center. And by the way, Bob and Rob both landed in the center of the table. It was a perfect table bump, but it still went wrong. You can't trust. It's not a worker that you can tell, hey, listen, brother, when we're out there, don't let the strap come up and hit me in the back and slice me. The table has a mind. I am the table. And it is.
Do you know where WWE got these tables, or where all these wrestling companies get these tables? Because there's like some trestle table company out there who's doing brisk business, sort of selling these things.
Well, now they got the announce table that just goes out and they rebuild it. It's actually breakable announce table, so they save money that way. When we were in ECW, they would go to like Staples or Office Max or one of these, and they would try to gimmick them a little bit because they definitely had more reinforcements. If you watch any Botchamania, you're going to see that, oh, they didn't gimmick that table. Just keep bouncing off it. But like I said, we didn't put that kind of thought into it. There was a news story in Philadelphia. It was the most amazingly tone deaf, complete no awareness about what they're watching. They literally said, and this is concerning chairs, but same thing with tables. The reason why the chairs do not hurt is because we have a special technology in the chairs that when we tap it twice, it becomes super soft. This is a legitimate local news story in Philadelphia exposing the business about how it really works.
What? So what do you think they made the chairs out of?
These are the same people, by the way, that when I did local interviews, WWE is body slamming their way into town. They're going to suplex their way into Philadelphia. I'm like, oh.
Oh, you've got to love a cliche, haven't you, with local news? Right, okay, so what was the theory behind it? So they tap it twice. What do you think it was made out of? Or was it like the loaded boot? You have to tap it twice and that releases
Listen, They didn't have the budget to even pay the wrestlers. Why are they in some kind of NASA did ECW promoters or people that created the, promotion, did Dusty Rhodes and Mike Graham break into Area 51 and get this special alien technology that, well, we could cure cancer or we could feed the world, but let's put the technology into making sure the chair shots don't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds great.
When it's so easy these days where you just clearly just shave them down.
You got me there when they, the special technique. The AEW suplexing their way into town.
Into the sandpaper shop. Right.
Good. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, like they must have watched that news story at AEW and said, "Oh, that's what we need to do."
Yeah, goodness sake. Piggybacking off what you just said then, so there is a sort of, to use the parlance, a gimmicking of a table prior to it being used. So are we talking, and this always used to be a knock on WCW from ECW, we don't use pre-cut tables, that kind of thing, but how would one treat a table before it's used?
If I can, I haven't seen a table in a while, but what I remember is not the band that cut Bob. That one is attached to the table and stays attached to the table to keep splinters from coming out those sides. There was a big metal kind of brace that was around the edge of the table that matched it. It was like a dark brown color on most of the tables. That was removed, and I think there was a couple other, like, cross braces, not the ones for the legs, but underneath, straight across, that were taken out. Those are the two things I think that gimmick the tables. But I don't know what WWE does. You're right. Where do they buy these things today? Does Vince own a table company or some kind of office company that they just, or a factory that just supplies them?
That also makes rubber kendo sticks and stuff like that. I don't know. And I'm not sure.
Not Sandman's.
No.
I didn't get one of those.
I went to a show in like 2001. It was 2000. It was like a tribute show, right? It had UK Undertaker or whatever else. That was the one that Yokozuna should have turned up at, but he died the day before or 2 days before. And then Greg Valentine was the other name on it, and then he just went home because he was understandably too depressed. So there was a hardcore match, right? And one of them was a kendo stick, and everyone went, woo! And then some guy gets hit on the back, and the kendo stick goes, boing, 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 boing.
With no noise.
Yeah, basically. You might as well hit him with the cheese string. You remember them?
I do.
Right. Okay. Right. So then
they should have shaved. They should have shaved down the kendo stick, the real one.
Yeah, if they would, you would have had just like a pool cue, and it really would have been like a cheese string or whatever they made, like the rubber they made out of. Anyway, as I said before, the pre-cut tables in WCW was always a knock that Paul Heyman used to make toward the company back in the day. But is pre-cutting a table more dangerous than not pre-cutting a table?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different mistakes when you pre-cut a table. Number one, it's kind of like Honky Tonk Man's guitar. Remember before he hit it with Jake, and then everybody was going near. He's like, "No, no, don't touch it. It's just if you just touch it or pick it up, it's gonna disintegrate." The table's the same way. If you take away the strength in the center, by the way, going through a table like isn't with it across. If you don't have those bars and those braces, it will break. It will. If you put enough force into it, it's going to break. If you pre-cut it, just dragging it could split it in half. Just setting up in the corners could. We've seen that happen in WCW. They pick up the table from the center and it just splits. That's the kind of stuff. That's one of those things you gimmick it enough to where it's still something that requires an amount of force to break, and it won't break accidentally. We had a table that wasn't cut, that wasn't even gimmicked all that much in the Saturday Night's Main Event with Sabu, yet he just dragged it in the leg. The leg just came out, which was kind of symbolic on how ECW was going to go. It cut the legs out from under us.
And a wonderful callback as well to earlier in the show. Stacking tables. Now, this is the Public Enemy thing, since copied a million times. Have you ever gone through stacked tables, and is there any art to taking that particularly dangerous bump?
Here's a question back to you. Should we add something here to the show or to Patreon because I not only went through stack tables, I went through flaming stack tables that kept going out and they kept missing and they kept lighting it on fire. They edited it was when the ECW when Public Enemy re-won the ECW tag belts, we won them off, the Pitbulls and then Public Enemy. It was Pitbulls and Gangsters. It was like a month or 2 after we lost them, and then the finish was double flaming tables, and, Rocco Rock moonsaulted me through them.
How was that?
Yeah, I got lit on fire for 2 minutes. I was I was wet down, hair back, you could tell something was gonna go down, and they lit it, Johnny Grunge lit it, it went up, Teddy kind of, like, couldn't get set, then he missed it, then Johnny Grunge, by the way, what he did was, instead of lighting this table, the bottom table under here, I was on this one, he lit the bottom. He did the lighter fluid right underneath me and then lit that.
I was like,
That's not on they edited that part out. The 2 minutes just had the flames and then Rocco going through me.
I was like, you know who's going to go through the fire is because it's like whoever's the soggiest when they get to the ringside. It's always the one who's patted down or hosed down beforehand.
That was me.
So as far as the stacking of the tables, I mean, future episode, we've got to talk about the fire and analyse it absolutely. Thing is, you were saying you were 190 pounds or something back in the day, you know. Do you have to be a certain weight to go through one table, let alone two tables, or else the momentum's gonna slow a lot earlier than it should do?
Well, not if the person has the force to put you through the table. They weren't putting me through like with a suplex or a power bomb. Teddy was moonsaulting. In theory, it looked like the tables were separated by 6 feet. Like, it looked like a long way to go like that. But yeah, I don't know. That's the thing back then. Hey, stack the tables, light them on fire. Yeah, it sounds like a great finish. Like, what am I gonna balk at that point? You know what I mean? And of course, I'm gonna take it because I'm the person that pinned the Public Enemy to win the tag belt. So it's a callback to that and revenge and a receipt for doing that. So it was just logistically when you look at it in the video and you when we watch it, you'll see it's like Teddy had to stand on a chair or on top of a table and then put a chair there to get the height to moonsault. It just wasn't going to work.
How many times have you done something with a table and it's just gone wrong one way or another? I mean, it could be anything from the table didn't split out or didn't break how you thought it would, or just misplacement. So, like, what percentage of the time is the table spot just a problem or goes wrong?
Not as high as I would have got. I'm trying to think as you were talking about that. The next question, like we said, we finished each other's. I knew which question was coming. I don't know. I don't recall anything being because if anything happened to that degree, we would definitely be doing a watch along of it, and I would definitely be laughing about it because it's just crazy. I remember I wrestled Ken Kennedy on one of the Wildcat shows in Louisiana, and everything we didn't do a table, but everything was going wrong. It was like a hardcore match. I threw one of those chairs in the ring, one of those plastic ones, composite ones that don't fold, and I was going to do the drop toe hold spot with him. I picked it up just to move it, and the legs separated from the
Oh.
seat. I was just like, and the fans, I mean, they exploded. It was just like I was like, what's going on? But that was the extent of just those little things. So we watched the botch watches. Like people keep now. That's the thing with me getting experience. If the table doesn't work as a heel, trying to give the table bump, okay, the finish is going to be the babyface put me through that table, or I'm never going back to that spot again. Because if we keep going back to it, guess what? It's a spot. It's fake. So now if somebody does get hurt off it, it's completely worthless because the fans are laughing.
When you land on a table, does it always have to be dead center in the middle? Is there just like a very narrow sweet spot, or can you basically get away with anywhere that's not on the legs?
No, no, I think the center because, well, away from the legs because that's where you get into the danger of literally being impaled. You don't know if the legs are going to come through the table, and it's not going to literally break because you have those legs supporting that. So you're gonna be lucky if you bounce off the table, much less it comes up and stabs you, impales you. The center is, here's the table, these are the legs, you're in this part. That's why they pre-cut them right there in the center, and boom, just like that.
I have to do a visual here, but if a table's like that, and obviously you are going to be landing that way for the most part, have you ever landed that way, sort of going parallel with the table? Not parallel, but you know what I mean, the same direction as the table lengthways, and landed on one that time?
No, but I've been laid on the table like that and had somebody hit me with like a splash across it, or do a thing where they do like the Rob Van Dam sideways splash, boom, and bounce off you like that. So yeah, if you're laid out that way, but the person coming down to put you through the table is perpendicular, you're across the table, they're coming down in that center point that you would go through the table. Now, the scary part is you're laying there, your feet, your crotch, your head and neck, they're right there where the table is, or the legs. They could still impale you. The worst one I've ever taken was Philadelphia, July 4th weekend, ECW. I wrestled Sabu, and I remember I got in a lot of trouble because Sabu went in the corner, I went back. Fans were chanting like, Sabu and Stevie sucks. So I came back to the corner, and it was inexperience or just letting the crowd get to me a little bit to try to get back at them. But because I knew what I was going to do, I go back to the corner and I go, F you, F you, F you, F you. Ran and did the Bobby Eaton, crashed myself in the corner, which the fans got a good reaction on. They were gonna find me, they were pretty mad, and it was true. Jerry Briscoe said, "Dude, you don't need to do," he didn't say dude, but he said, "You don't need to do that." If he said dude, I'd be like, "What?" But yeah, dude. So
Sweet.
he's probably thought, I'll speak his language, dude. Come on. So, but the worst table bump that was just funny because I was trying to protect myself and got hurt even more. Sabu did the Arabian face buster in that match right after that, face down, and he said, "Put your hand in front of your face, protect your eye, because sometimes you get splinters and stuff like that." I did that. He hit me with it. I tore part of my bicep protecting myself because it jammed up, and I still got splinters all throughout, like, right? So great job, everybody.
I've only got a couple more of these, don't worry.
That was after 1, 2, sorry. 1, 2, sorry.
Are there any other hidden table dangers then? So we've mentioned Bob Holly, and I've also mentioned RVD's eyelid, and that was just, another freak thing where a bit of splints come up and it just ripped his eyelid pretty much off his face. Yeah. But have you heard of any other weird sort of, maybe even like just freak incidents like that over the years with tables?
I was in an independent locker room, and I can't quite put my finger on it because this is not the only time this was brought up. We talk about reinventing the wheel. Okay? Here's the ultimate, you should never reinvent the wheel. Now, which way does somebody usually go through a table?
That way.
Top of the table through to the bottom. Yeah. You know what would be cool? This is exactly the way it was presented. You know what would be cool? And you know what's never been done before? How about if we go through the table from the bottom? They wanted to put the table across from the apron to the guardrail, but not down like you would go through and then split that way, upside down with the bar exposed and everything, because nobody's ever broken a table that way. If I had a cigarette, put it out, go over, and then what I would have done, what I wanted to do, if it was one of the states where you needed a wrestling license to work, to perform, I would have asked both guys, "Could I see your wrestling licenses?" Well, if they handed them to me, I would have tore them up right in front of them, threw it at them, and walked away.
Has the bar never hurt you then? Or do you ever feel that, the one that goes lengthways, both sides of the table?
No, you're talking about the one that goes from leg to leg, because sometimes they'll remove that because that's where the break would happen.
Right.
Talking about in the center of the table?
No, I was thinking, let's say that is the table. I don't know, my phone's covered in crap. But I thought there was like a bar each side there. sort of maintain the
No, that's the
integrity.
one that goes all the way around the table, that brace.
Yeah, but that's on the outer edge, sort of like this phone cover, I guess. But no, you never had tables where they'd have like a metal bar, like.
Well, if they do, the secret to the table, the secrets of wrestling. Here comes the people with the mask and the Corvette and the fog machine. We still have to watch
Yeah,
that.
Stunt Granny.
The secrets of pro wrestling. Here comes Birdcage from ECW. But the key to that is removing every element to prevent the table from breaking. And number one thing is to break it. That's a 1B. 1A is to not get impaled and not get hurt, is to remove every bit of bracing and hardware that you can remove and let it break while still giving it its stability. So basically, you just want to leave the legs and whatever keeps the legs from folding up. So that brace that goes 45 degrees, that folds the legs and unfolds the legs, that's essentially what it is. But any brace, any bar that keeps that center point from breaking, and more importantly, to keep that brace from going up into your back, that's what you need to remove.